Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. This is our first day on the job site. We're going to be adding a little bit of concrete out of the back of this garage. Although I did work here about 2 years ago in the front yard on a driveway addition. Now we're working in the backyard. Since then, since I did the first job in the front, he's opened up the back of his garage to do a drive-through. And now he likes to work on cars. He used to be a race car driver. Now, and he does a lot of the mechanical work as well. So this is going to be his workshop. And we're going to do this concrete a little bit differently than I normally do it. For this one, because he may actually put a car lift on here, which is probably a good idea if you're going to be working on cars. We're going to go 6 inches deep on this one. Normally I go 4 inches, but we're going to go 6 inches. We're going to use my usual rebar layout, which is the 3/8 rebar on 2-foot centers in both directions. And I'm going to also throw in a half-pound fiber for every cubic yard of concrete I use on this job. The good news is that fiber I happen to have in stock if anybody wants any. It's through my storefront at davidodellconcrete.com. And it's a lot less than you can get it from at the batch plant. I have a little low boy I had dropped off in the front driveway to remove this dirt. That way I don't have to round trip any trailers to the dump. I can load this trailer plus my trailer and get it all out non-stop. Those little low boys for dirt or concrete are about $500 to $600, and you can get about 10 yards into them. I have the laser level set up right there. That's a self-leveling Johnson. And what I'm doing with that, and the reason I have it set up right now, is as I get close to where I think I need to be on this grade as I'm doing the excavation, I can grab the story pole, drop it down on the dirt grade and see how much deeper I want to go. And I know that this yard all slopes towards the rear of the property. So I took a shot off the top of the concrete there, and we took 6 inches off because we want to just shoot dirt. So 6 inches below the existing concrete, plus I need about another 2 to 3 inch slope in that 20 foot run, because it's a 20 by 22 wide, 20 deep. So I want to get about 2.5 inches of slope out of there. That should be sufficient. Fairly flat, good to work on, rolling around. Also, we're going to do saw cut joints. That way, if he's rolling around under cars and moving heavy equipment around, he's going to get hung up in a tool joint. Saw cuts, you won't feel rolling over those. Now on the side there, you see that pressure treated 2x12. The homeowner actually put that in himself, and the way he did that is he got some 4x4 pressure treated, went and rented himself an auger, a little toe behind auger. He went 3 foot deep every 4 foot and dropped a 4x4 pressure treated 3 foot deep, and then he put bagged concrete around each post. And then after that, he put 6 inches gravel on top of the concrete and behind his 2x12 pressure treated, and he backfilled. So he did a really good job. The 2x12s are behind, the 4x4s are behind the 2x12s, so you can't really see them. But he lagged into them with some bolts from the front side. So I had to be very careful that I didn't disturb that. after all the work he did. If I had banged that board, he wouldn't have been very happy for sure. Now, as you can see that existing driveway, even from a distance here, I can see right now there's a lot of sections. The way that initially was poured was in sections of 8 by 8, and it was separated by 1 by 4s, redwood 1 by 4s that are completely gone now. It's been there so long. So you've got a 1-inch gap in between each section, and they're floating around, you know, independently and kind of doing whatever they want. So what they did was they got off about 1 inch to 2 inches from one another. So you got a lot of major trip hazard situations right there. And I really don't want to match that edge because it's so undulating along that existing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some 6-inch deep felt by 1/2 inch wide, and that stays fairly straight and rigid. And I can lay it up against that existing concrete there, and I can put a line, snap a line on the inside face of that existing slab there, a nice straight line, put my felt to that, pour against the felt. That way when we get into future stuff, removing the rest of the concrete and joining to my new concrete, we'll have a nice straight edge. So that's the plan here. The second phase of this project, the garage floor and that existing concrete that I keep driving over, that's all dependent upon the sale of the 1966 GMC, all original. I'm going to talk about that and do a quick clip of that vehicle. It's sitting in the backyard here. You can't see it right now, but original owner, everything original, even the paint. Pretty amazing vehicle, which I'll get into later. Right now we're taking the laser level, establishing some grades. We're going to snap some lines on that 2x12 retainer. The existing concrete does have some slope from right to left, about 2 inches. So we have positive slope there, even though the soil's much higher at that left side of the yard because of those cypress trees, or Italian cypresses. Those are good trees for privacy, and the roots are very minimal for the height that you can get out of them. And well, the actual roots are the same shape as the tree, so. And all trees are pretty much like that. If you could pull a tree out of the ground and flip it upside down, it pretty much looked the same, but it wouldn't be green. It wouldn't have any leaves on it. That's basically the root structure of trees. It's exact identical underground. So once we got all that sod out of there, the beauty of it was this ground was really nice and tight. And what I like to do when I'm doing an excavation where I know I'm going to be pouring concrete on it, which I do quite regularly, as you know, by watching some of my videos, I like to make my cuts perfect, not overcut. You know, undercut's okay because you can always go back through, run it, drop it down another inch, but I never like to overcut because once you disturb native soil that's been sitting here for 40 years, reaching its maximum compaction all by itself through gravity, water, and everything else that happens in time, you really don't want to overcut and then try to recompact because you'll never get the same. It's always best when left undisturbed. So that's what I go for, undisturbed. Cut it perfect. You're ready to go. So we just pulled our 22 feet off of that 2x12 retainer. We paralleled it, and that's parallel to the house, so we know we're looking good. So visually, by my first eyeball on the excavator, I got it close, but once I put some lines up, we noticed we were a little high still along those Italian cypresses, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit more. And we're going to be using 2x6 forms rather than the 2x4s. That way we don't have concrete going out from underneath this 6-inch slab on a 2x4 setup, which is never good when you try to strip it, because now you've mushroomed the back end of it, and then you can't get the forms out without splitting them. So we'll go 2x6s down to grade to retain the concrete 100%. I overcut about 6 inches around the outside perimeter of all my formwork, so I could have potentially used that plastiform material, because they do come in 6-inch, and I still would have had space to get my little brackets on the back. But I had the 2x6, and that's what we're going to go with here, wood. And also I'm going to be using my world famous Mobile One synthetic, cut with diesel fuel. I cut the Mobile One used synthetic out of my own vehicle with the diesel, so it sprays a lot smoother out of my pump up garden sprayer. Second day, tying rebar up. Forms are all in. We've got the overhead screed system. And by the way, I have a new Tomahawk equipment. Sent me some screed systems and some gas powered sprayer backpacks and stuff. I'm going to be giving those away also pretty soon here. I just got to try them out on the job site. I got the Tomahawk screed system with the engines, 1-man operated, 8-foot to 12-foot aluminum screeds on it. And those are going to be going out real soon. And this particular mix design that I'm going with here is a 3250 city mix, is what we call it. In other words, it has no fly ash in it. And fly ash is a substitute for cement. Here's a rotting technique. We've got aluminum overhead through the middle, and we've got another aluminum 10-footer on the side. We pulled a weddy out from the retainer, and now we're just going to strike it. That weddy we pulled out from the retainer is my guide that I'm going to be riding on. What I mean by a weddy is that's my wet screed. In other words, I pulled out about 2 feet from the retainer, parallel to the retainer, pulled out with my aluminum 10-footer. And now I've got a straight edge to ride on when I turn perpendicular to it. Some people will throw another overhead along those walls and retainers and stuff like that, instead of trying to follow a chalk line. But this is how I do it, and it saves you a lot of steps, and you can get a good finish along the edge without obstructions. Since we're using a 6-inch slab here, 6-inch depth, We went with the 3-inch dobies rather than my typical 2-inch dobies on a 4-inch slab. Now at that center screed, if you notice, I'm using the same rod board as I used for the other side, but you notice how it's overlapping? That's because that center screed is really not centered, it's offset. And knowing the reason I offset it is that way when I do the long side first, my same rod board overlaps enough so I can ride off of my weddy again. Now he just shook the hose out there at the end. That way we didn't have a lot of extra waste to dispose of. And anything that we do have, we can throw back into the pump and dispose of it back into the concrete truck, which takes it back to the plant. They recycle. The only thing they can't reuse would be, well, they reuse everything, actually, the water. The only thing they don't reuse is the cement itself, but the gravel sand gets separated. Cement settles, and they can reuse they probably reuse about 80%. But what I'd like to do is a walkthrough of the batch plant to really show the interworkings of a batch plant and how they reclaim a lot of the excess that comes back to the plant. So we ran the 4-foot wide magnesium bowl float over it. That happened to have a rocker arm on it, so I can adjust the tilt of the bowl float at any angle. Now we're running a 10-inch wide, 1/2-inch radius edge around the perimeter. And I don't know if you can see it from here, but that felt is actually about an inch, 1.5 lower in a couple points of that existing concrete. And it's about maybe 1.5, 2 inches higher in some points of that existing concrete, because we ended up getting a straight plane across there instead of matching the old concrete. Now I bowl floated it once, same direction that I was rodding. Now I'm going perpendicular to my rod, which is really what you want to do. Whenever you rod, you want to run your bowl float perpendicular to it. That really takes out the ups and downs. And it's hard to do it, you know, when you're in these tight quarters. So I'm running kind of on an angle here, but I'm kind of getting the job done. Now here we are with the fiberglass funny float. The reason that's a funny float is because it's a hand float that has been converted to adapt to an extended pole, and that's when it became funny. Basically what that funny float is doing is, it's as you're running that across there, you're looking for deviations in the concrete that you need to work, maybe holes as it's running over, and you can push concrete from a high spot to a low spot, and you're kind of feeling it out. That's the funny trowel, or actually that's Big Blue there getting set up, because that's my next tool. After Big Blue, I'll probably run a funny trowel, which is a trowel with a pole on it. Here's Big Blue running, and because the weight of it and the wide blade, it lays it down quick and flat, no chatters. And the nice thing about having that rocker on Big Blue, I can extend out probably 6 poles and still get it back without losing it in a burial. In other words, not being able to pull it back or raise it up high enough to pull it back without digging in. That's why you want rockers. Also, you want them so you can really get some more tilt. If the concrete's getting hard, you can tilt it up higher to really burn it in and move some concrete around. Now here's your funny trowel. Basically what that does is it eliminates an extra pass by hand off your sliders. Now in a lot of areas you could just get away with that and walk away and you're done. You know, and a lot of people probably would. They go, well, it looks pretty good. Let's roll it up, pack it up. But I like to hit it again off the boards to really get down on it. So that's the technique you'll use. What I have there is a 20 by 5 trowel. Front leading edge is rounded. My rear end of my 20 by 5 is square. And then I also have a 12 by 5, which is my scrubber just in case I get into some hard stuff. A lot of guys will run what they call a pool trowel, and that's a double rounded ends, short shank, and you could pretty much trowel it when it's, you know, really wet. I mean, piss wet, and still walk away with no trowel marks. That's the beauty of the pool trowel. Although running that double rounded early on wet concrete is never a good thing because you're going to get a lot of crazy cracks at that point because you're entrapping the surface water. So I don't recommend it. I'd recommend sweating and get down on it when it's right. Well, here we are. We're on the same job site. We're on this job right here. I just laid out the chalk lines. We're going about 6'8" to 6'4" squares. Initially we were just going to do one each way, but it seemed like it was a little bit too big at 10 foot by 11. So we broke it down into, we got 6 squares now. But getting back to this truck I just found out happens to be for sale. It's a 1966 Chevy 3/4 ton camper special. Original everything, even the paint. I was just checking it out. I was talking to the homeowner. I said, hey, I'll just throw this up on my channel. And that way, if it sells, or as soon as it sells, you'll have the money to complete the rest of your project here, the garage floor and the rest of the driveway. And he said, yeah, sure, let's do that. But here's what it looks like. Let's take a look on the inside. This is original upholstery. These are the original floor mats that the original owner had bought. This is the second owner right here. It's let's take a look at that odometer right here real quick. Yep, 44,000 miles. And the owner told me that everything's original. Motor, tranny, original paint. What else about this vehicle? It says 327 right there. It was initially purchased brand new, 1966, in San Jose, California. So you know it's not going to have much rust. sitting down here in this area where it's nice and dry all the time. But yeah, this thing's really straight. And let's look at this floor in the back. It's got a wood floor in the bed. And I was looking at this and I was going, wow, it's like not worn at all. But I guess because it's a camper special, it had a camper on it for a long time and it was just used for camping purposes, and that was it. She's a real beauty though. Oh yeah, we just had the hood open now. Let's take a look inside there. See what we got going on. This is always fun. This is the perks of working for lots of different people. You get to look at this kind of stuff. You get the opportunity to see a lot of different things, talk to a lot of different people, which is always makes it fun. This is the original air conditioner, by the way. This has an alternator. I think this was, I don't know if this is the first year they went from generator to alternator, but this is the alternator system. There's the AC, 44,000 miles. Apparently he uses it, he still drives it, and it's fun to drive, what he's told me. Anyway, if anybody wants it, just email me or contact me in the comments. I'll get you in touch with them. As soon as we get this baby off sold, we're gonna start this next project. Let me show you where that is. This is where we need the funds for over here. We're gonna tear out this area. See, look at, take a look at this. I had to put some felt in here because I knew we were gonna do this second portion at some point, and I didn't want to match it because you can see how undulating it is. And you can see that I'm 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher than existing in that corner. Fly-by jet, Back Bay, Newport Beach, California. Standard issue. Get your earplugs. Then we're gonna rip all this out. Also, that truck, hopefully he gets enough money where we can go all the way through. We want to tear out this garage floor as well. Now this car into this tarp is pretty amazing. This is a 56 Corvette, all original as well. Yeah, this floor's got to come out. It's heaving, it's doing all kinds of stuff. But what we're going to do next, everything like we did this slab, we're going 6 inches with rebar. Everything else that was here that is really moving around a lot because we got some really expansive soil here, I would say. We're gonna go with 6-inch deep fiber mesh rebar on everything, and I think that will hold this together. It'll float all in one piece and not come apart again. Look at that crack. That's about 1 inch wide right there. And look at how it raised up over here. Good inch right there. So I got this felt, so when I tear out this other stuff, I've got a nice straight edge here to tie into, and then I'll dowel back in. Alright, I'm going to get back to saw cutting here because I'm running a solo operation. Alright, so we've got a vacuum on this saw, and we're picking up about 80% of the dust, I would say. Really not as much as I'd like to. If I was indoors, it wouldn't work. I need to pick up 100% of the dust. So I either need a more powerful vacuum or a different guard, different type of a guard on this saw that comes all the way down to the ground and seals up. Either way, it's good enough for what we're doing here. And you notice I didn't even need a dust mask, which is a nice thing. Oh, here there was a vent hole at the top of this hose built into the guard. And I think we were losing a lot of suction through that, so I duct taped it off to see if we could draw more dust out of the guard. But you notice how the guard stopped short of the plate? Now if that guard had came down all the way to the plate, I think we would have picked up a lot more dust. But you see I'm not there, I'm not full depth. That's why you have that space. But anyway, we were able to cut this entire job at 1.5 inches deep. Really, technically, should have been about 2 inches deep. 25% of 6-inch deep concrete is actually your control depth that you want to be. 25% of your depth of concrete is what you want for control joints. And I went 1.5 inches. It'll work, but it's not by standards that you would read in a book possibly. Now I like the pressure washer when I do my cleanup because this cement residue is hard to get off just with a typical water hose. Plus you're going to use a lot of water and you're going to have a flood all the way around your perimeter by using a water hose. So with the pressure washer, using very little water, and it's very efficient and it cleans very well. So I always go with the pressure washer on cleanup. So there's your control joints. Saw cut, it's a weekend plane joint. We went with a smooth trowel finish because he will be working on this, and I think he'll be putting a lift on it. Anyway, thank you for watching this video and have a good day.